Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's see, I don't know who's running the meeting. I haven't actually seen Jay. Is that, looks like that's Terry over there.
There's a Jay.
Oh,
That was
there's
Jay.
Okay, good.
That was Jay.
Oh, good. Yeah. Get him signed in.
Zell or something, or
Oh, did you get attendance from last week? Ann and I tried to sign in last week, but we were not successful.
I know. Yeah, last week I didn't even try to get attendance. It was just, yeah.
It's available.
Okay, our speaker's online.
Okay. And who is that?
Aaron?
I'm going to a Rotary Club meeting on Friday morning.
Fantastic.
At 5 o'clock your time.
Okay.
And it's a lady who's going to be speaking on the wicked business side of St. Augustine from 100 years ago.
Okay. Well, that sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting speaker.
This is cold.
She gave me a preview when I ran into her at the library yesterday. She mentioned that she had a great recipe for bathtub gin.
George.
Literally made in a bathtub.
Okay.
So if you decide you want to go into a new business without
Kim.
going outside, Joanne,
Bathtub gin.
she said in the heyday, this moonshine was bringing over $60 a gallon compared to the average across the country price of only $1 a gallon. So this is premium stuff made in your bathtub.
Very good. Is that Mary Beth hanging up her coat? I think it is.
that is Mary Beth.
Okay.
There's Mary Beth. Yep. We
There's
got her.
Mary Beth. She's brave enough to come in. Did I see Marty?
No, Marty.
You have better eyes than I do, Joanne. If you can see it.
Looks like that's John. Good grief, he showed up. Yeah, actually, it's a pretty good turnout. Look at online. We've got 14 online. That's often as many as we have. Oh, there's.
Yeah, I think it's a record online, Joanne, isn't
I
it?
think it's a record online. Is that Dave?
Yep, it is. Oh, looks like Jay's ringing the bell.
Oh, okay.
Oh my, look at the
Y'all,
snow.
I rang the bell. I know it might be hard to hear it online. We've got a very small in-person crowd today because of the snow. And for many of those who chose not to drive in today, probably a better choice.
My husband told me I should do that.
Well, it was pretty hairy out there, especially on 36.
Oh, when, what? It was white out.
On 36.
Oh.
So that being said, thank you for everyone who did choose to come, and everyone online. You're missing, I think, what's probably one of the first meetings where people are not wearing masks. So, there you go.
There is a mask rule in the Humane Society, but I figure we can close the door and we are our own little entity.
Cool. I think we can do that now. We got Marty here. If Bob comes, he's too late. He's going to stay outside.
Please come. I need to flow.
All right. Well, we're being recorded. I already hit the button, so it's happening. Today, agenda is pretty standard. We have a Zoom speaker today, so everyone who's on Zoom, it probably works a little bit better for you, but we'll get to that in a moment. We'll get to the Pledge of Allegiance now. For those can follow me, and those online, probably mute yourself because it'll just be really a ruckus over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, remain standing real quick. We'll do the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First,
Truth.
is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and
friendships? Will it be
beneficial
to all concerned? And
will it be fun?
awesome. All right, so we have no guests here in the room. Let me check online real quick and see if we see any guests. We have our speaker, and nope, no guests. All right, well that leads us to our announcements. So today we've got just one volunteer announcement, I believe, and then just some report outs. So please RSVP to Joe if you are planning to represent the club as well and camp out together for the annual sleep out. That said, if the weather's like this, it's going to be a nice cold one. So,
Oh,
Joe, anything to say about that one?
You know, I mean, it's getting colder. I've got my fart sack, so, you know, extra hat, mittens. It's only for a couple hours. It's not like you have to do it every night.
So Joe and I did it in 2017, and there's a picture of the two of us on our Facebook page if anyone.
Don't show my wife that picture.
I said with passion, I said, don't tell Kathy. Okay, but the thing is, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I went inside the church and I found it so bad. I saw this, I was freezing to death. I did not have a fancy sleeping bag.
I
I
will
was
say,
so cold.
I remember you talking about that.
And I was sick for a month.
I will say that
But it
the
was fun.
organizers often say, you know, the real part is the fundraising beforehand. If you're uncomfortable with the elements, you've already done your part. If you feel at risk, then, you know,
Yeah.
so be it. You don't, it's just,
Yeah, people die of exposure out there every day.
Yep.
So don't
this is
kill yourself
absolutely
if
true.
you're raising money to help support the cause.
Yeah, it just reinforces the fact that these kids that together helps have nowhere to go.
Yep.
I mean, it's really horrifying, especially on days like this. Oh my God.
Yeah, yesterday there was a guy sleeping on someone's thrown out sectional in the alley over by the grocery store with a blanket over his head in the front of him, but his back was still completely exposed. And I was like, it's not gonna work for you.
It's right on the extremities
Yeah.
that are off your fingers and toes. and
Totally.
nose and ears.
I have 2 people I met last week that had frostbite the week before.
It
A lot of
happens so
people.
quickly.
Yeah.
So quick.
Yeah, I almost got frost hit yesterday just shoveling my front drive. It was so cold, you know.
See, in Colorado, you don't shovel, you wait for the sun.
That's not true anymore.
Yeah,
That's not true.
not like
It is in
today.
my
It
yard.
just
Depends
keeps
on
coming.
your neighborhood.
All right, so report outs on past events. So did you well do the fire clothing, like the report out on that event last week?
Yes, Kim
Good,
let us know
great,
that it
perfect.
worked out really well.
Awesome. So flower power, how did that all go?
So I missed out on the Sunday night pack, but apparently it happened very well because when we showed up at Empower Field to load the truck, semi showed up and it was packed to the gills. We got 64 boxes out of the semi into our truck, back to Boulder and distributed. We were done by 9:30.
Wow.
So, I mean, people just kind of showed up, we loaded cars and sent them on their way to the different designated spots.
Fantastic.
6 to 8 plants to a box, so if you get, 6 boxes, you've got 40 to 50 plants. Greatly appreciated at the facilities we sent to.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're back on the boat of doing that because I know that it's been a couple of years since that's been a real possibility. So just the last follow-up here. So this is the info for the sleep out for those that are looking for that information, especially people online. And then also for the Chase House Meals, Jason signed up currently for this month. So that'll be this upcoming week here.
Friday.
Yeah, this Friday. Yeah. So awesome. Good to see all that. We're on to Happy Bucks since everyone here is at least familiar, save for our guest, about Happy Bucks. This is an opportunity for us to say something we're thankful or happy for, and live for the good of the order, and less grumpy bucks is better.
I'm gonna have.
117th birthday to Rotary.
Oh.
You look half that age. You look half that age.
Just glad we made it here.
I got a happy 10 for all the flowers and everybody that helped, and for the fact that they're still talking about getting spring training happening. But in the collegiate ranks, baseball has started. My nephew played their first doubleheader on Saturday. Nuts. Yeah.
So I'm thankful that I didn't break my head when I fell walking in here today with ice cream. I'm fine.
On the sidewalk?
Huh?
Out here?
No,
No, inside.
Fine,
Today is Rotary's
watch your
birthday,
eyes.
and the reason that I remember that it's Rotary's birthday of February 23rd is because it's also my wedding anniversary.
Oh,
Oh.
Happy
4 years.
You've been married as long as Rotary's been around.
Oh, you're a saint. So I have it's a regret, grumpy, but I regret not, I was gonna go Monday morning, but we had Terminex show up again because of squirrels, and we have a dead squirrel in our chimney.
you should smoke him.
Unless we wanna have roast squirrel.
I've got a recipe for smoked squirrel. I can send you.
I'm happy Jay had a really good trip last week, and I'm even more happy he's here to resolve the technical demons, to exorcise the demons.
The Zoomers were so worried about all you guys.
They should have been.
So for all the Zoom folks, we can't see you, but we can hear you. Any happy bucks on Zoom today?
Yep, this is Joanne.
Oh, we
Happy
got
bucks for Flower Power too, because the Fraser people just love those gorgeous flowers they got from the Home and Garden Show, courtesy of Rotary. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Joanne. Kim?
Yes, so we are delighted. We've got our oldest son, his wife, and our 3 oldest grandchildren, 18, 16, and almost 15 here. And that's just very much to be grateful for. So I'll pay up next week.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome.
And I have a grumpy buck just in the sense of we have been trying to get a plumber in here for a while, and we're finally get him to come in today, but that means we're not gonna be able to use our plumbing for about 8 hours, yet we have to still be here to help him.
Oh, wow.
So that's a grumpy dollar there.
Screen's off, Jay.
I understand. Yeah, we're trying to fix something that's going on here for the Zoom folks, and unfortunately, it's not working. So,
Who's on Zoom, Jay? I missed it.
Joanne took attendance there for us today, so we'll be
I'm just curious.
lots of people.
Oh,
Yeah,
I figured there'd be more than here.
a lot more.
George and Joey.
I have 2 huge bags.
I thought I just, since there's so few here, I do it with the gals and you first one last do that.
Yeah, so,
Okay, one moment. I apologize, everyone. We're having a technical difficulty with the presentation deck.
I don't know.
Enter your participant ID
There we go.
followed by
All right.
the meeting password followed by pound.
All right. Well, with all that said, we
You are there are 15 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
who is that? Someone just joined us by phone, I think. So there we
You
go.
are muted. Unmute yourself.
Someone is joining us by phone and by computer. So please,
Do one or the other.
one or the other. It's, yeah, now we've got an echo.
Because I've done that.
Feedback.
When I, you know, it's not you.
It sends a link to the Russian
I didn't know- I didn't
service.
That's the excuse now.
Okay.
Like the Chinese version.
So now that we've got that resolved, going to
I assume.
And sorry, I'm getting this reset. Apparently our switch broke this last week, so we can't actually switch between 2 screens anymore. I'll have to order a new one. and we're gonna have to set this up a little different today. So that said, I'm going to, how am I gonna have to do this now? Top one.
So you could eliminate our cameras.
Yeah, then I can't show it on the screen is a problem here. So, yeah. So that we,
Oh, my goodness.
here we go.
Oh, there they are.
Do it this way.
Wow. Look at their balance.
All right, so you all are visible in the room as you can now see here. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is now it's,
Hi Val, we like your beard and your mustache.
I think that's just a photo.
I
Yeah.
know it is. Oh, but do you look like that now?
Rusty, you look so serious.
okay. So Aaron, we're gonna start moving it over to you.
So formal.
Apologize for the slowdown here. When our physical hardware breaks, that makes things a bit more complicated. So just trying to get this all reassigned for everyone.
Joanne, did you see yourself on Facebook?
Oh, we can't.
Can't hear you.
Yeah.
You're muted.
All right, Aaron, you are now spotlighted for everyone. All the people in the room can see you and all of us can see you here online.
Can we hear him?
And
Thank you. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
absolutely.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you this morning. Truly a pleasure to be here. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Rotary before coming to Boulder, but as I've learned about the organization, I have tremendous respect for the mission, the values of the organization. And I hope when I talk a little bit about what we're doing at Boulder, some of the ideas around service to others and acting with integrity should, I hope, resonate with this group. What I thought I'd do, talk for a few minutes about, well, leadership, and then hopefully have some time for question and answer. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. So just so I know my audience, could I get a quick, maybe show of hands? How many people have military experience? Let's see, George, Rusty online.
3 online
really
in the
see
room here. We've got 3 in the room here, Aaron.
Okay, wonderful.
And I'm an Army vet, my grandfather and father, and I do a lot with the VFW. So,
Okay, thank
uh-huh.
and that's, it's not a surprise. I think, you know, well, talk to service-based organizations, there's generally a higher proportion of military service affiliation than Boulder proper. I don't think that's a coincidence, but thank you all for your service. And I want to speak to you really a little bit about my background with the military, just because it does inform what we're doing today in Boulder. And it starts really, I joined the Army early 90s. Just by quick, you know, history at the time, the Soviet threat was the adversary that we were most worried about, which is kind of ironic given what's going on in Ukraine this week. I thought that would pass, but early 90s it was the Soviet Union, and even though the wall had fallen by the 90s, that was still the adversary that said we were worried about and we trained against. And so when I was initially learning leadership at the military academy, you know, we often talked about the Russians. And when you think about that threat, that was a threat that we had been studying for 50 plus years. We knew a lot about how they fought. We knew their order of battle. We knew their vehicles. We knew every tank, soft spot, range, you know, how much fuel they had, range of their weapon systems. And we actually talked in terms of information dominance. That was one of the aspirations that our national security policy was built on, really knowing everything we could know about the enemy. And so leadership, as I initially learned it, we used the acronym C2, or that was short for command and control. Command was the act of giving orders. Control were putting systems in place to ensure those orders were followed. And so it was never explicitly stated, but the idea essentially was the leader understood the capabilities and limitations of their own unit, understood the capabilities and limitations of the adversary, understood the operating environment, the rules of the game, and gave orders, and essentially the expectation was do what you were told to do when you were told to do it, and you would be successful. The analogy that makes sense for me is maybe the great chess master. You know, when you study people like MacArthur, he thought of himself as a chess master that moved pieces on the board to win engagements. And that was kind of the leadership lessons that I was learning. And I got to be honest, it never quite felt right to me. And I don't think I ever really did well with that model, but you end up playing the game in order to get a decent enough grade to graduate, you know, from West Point. Luckily, though, when I commissioned into the Army, I had the good fortune of serving in increasingly selective units. And so it started with the 82nd Airborne and then the Ranger Regiment. I commanded a long-range surveillance detachment before going to 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, known as Delta Force, which is America's premier counterterrorism unit. And I only share that because what I learned when I got out and actually led soldiers in high-performing units is that model of command and control just didn't work. And instead of having leaders that told me exactly what to do and when to do it, I had leaders that empowered me, that trusted me, that gave me intent and vision, and helped me develop. And it was almost like servant leadership. That would probably be the term that most people are familiar with it now. And I think that's why, I loved my time in service so much, but it also became paramount after the events of 2001. And so, you know, when we talk about information dominance and knowing the enemy, no one ever expected the enemy to take civilian airliners and turn them into missiles to attack, you know, New York City and DC. And in the counterterrorism world, that enemy, you know, and I've seen the terrorists do some crazy things. There are no rules to the game. There is no chessboard. And so the idea of, you know, telling people what to do and when to do it is just an inherently flawed model. And I think the same can be said, I believe, in industry, with the increased interconnectedness, really in any industry, the speed of information. Today, the old model where if you have a problem at the lowest level, kind of going up the chain of command to the very senior leader to make a decision, then kind of going back down, it's just an inherently flawed model. And so leadership needs to change. The time that I came up with that or started thinking about it was right around 2009 or so, when I started really studying this problem. And interestingly, around the same time, I also noticed a kind of ubiquitous lack of ethical leadership. You know, obviously you had the 2008 financial crisis. Everyone's familiar with maybe the lack of ethics or character in many of the senior leaders in the finance sector, but it wasn't just finance. I mean, you can look at the banking sector and Wells Fargo. You can look at the automotive industry and the Volkswagen scandal. You know, the tech sector and the Theranos trial that was happening around that same time. And you might think that all these finance sectors, you'd expect that, but then I can tell you in the military, we had a rash of senior leader misconduct. The Catholic Church, you had nonprofits that suffered from ethical failures. And at that time, I happened to be in Washington, DC. I was well, quick question. Does anybody know the biggest threat facing our national security circa 2010 to 2012? I don't have a reward, but I'm curious. Any guesses?
Cyber?
Cyber's a great guess, but that's not right. Iraq was drawing down, Afghanistan, low bubble, and it wasn't China, it wasn't Russia.
Canada, we all know it.
It was not Canada. It was actually Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula or Yemen. And again, this isn't my guess. This was stated in the Obama national security policy, and the number one threat facing our country was emanating from southern Yemen, where Al-Qaeda had taken over large portions of the country. If you remember Yemen and the USS Cole bombing, that was the port of Aden, but now Al-Qaeda had taken over, and there were a lot of people that were attacking the US. Here's the next question. What nationality is most responsible for terrorism-related deaths in the United States since 2001? Any guesses?
The US.
Nationality?
Yes, nationality. The first guess, whoever said US is correct. More Americans have killed Americans in terrorist-related attacks than any other nationality, by far. The number one threat to the US in the late 2000s was a guy named Anwar al-Awlaki. Does anybody want to guess his nationality?
It's American.
American, yeah, he was born outside of Houston, Texas. And his number two was a guy named Samir Khan, also American, both living in southern Yemen. They started a magazine called Inspire Magazine, which you can Google and download and read, and you'll be put on a terrorist watch list by the FBI. You're welcome to do it if you're curious. But Awlaki was the guy that inspired Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, and Nidal Hassan, the Fort Hood attack there. And there was an attack in New York City. A vehicle blew up in Times Square. Another vehicle, guy got in and drove down a bike path and ran guys over in a rented U-Haul van. All of that came out of articles from Inspire Magazine and consultation with Anwar al-Awlaki. So he was the one inspiring these, they called them the lone wolf terrorist attacks. Anyway, that was my mission between 2010 and 2012, was to go kill Anwar al-Awlaki. And so at that time I was jumping between Sanaa and DC, and I was very junior in rank, but I was allowed into some very, very senior level meetings in our US government. And I was deeply disenchanted with the state of leadership. I don't know how else to say it, but I saw people explicitly stating that they were making decisions not based on what's in the best interest of our national security or Americans, but rather what would engender favor with the president and what would get them closer to the Oval Office. And that was kind of a shock to me because I came from a very service-based, background, and I left that time, like I said, deeply cynical and disenchanted about the state of leadership in our country. A few years later, I got injured and wasn't sure what to do. Kind of my whole life had changed with that injury, and everything I'd been training for was no longer an option. And I had, though, a leader that cared about me deeply and kind of helped me and encouraged me to come to the University of Colorado Boulder. Actually said, go to ROTC and teach college kids. And I'm like, I don't like college kids, like these spoiled kids. What do I have in common with them? But then I looked on the list, and University of Colorado Boulder was one of the schools, and I liked the mountains and healthy living, and Boulder had a good reputation, even though I'd never been here. And I volunteered to come to Boulder, and I started talking leadership to these young people, and found it to be a deeply rewarding, cathartic experience. And I met these young people who had this thirst to have these conversations about living your values and what it means to actually lead. And I found it very rewarding that, to have these conversations that I wish somebody had with me when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and talked about what really mattered in life. And it's not position, power, or how much money you make. It's understanding who you are, being part of a cause that you care about deeply, dedicating yourself to that, service to others, acting with integrity, these sorts of things. And I was lucky enough that while I enjoyed teaching there, then I retired, and Chancellor Phil DeStefano, who I assume some of you know, he's been around here a while. He started talking about, what is the purpose of higher education and what should CU Boulder be all about? And his number one imperative is to shape tomorrow's leaders. And he and I had a conversation around what that means. And, if you read the headlines, you'll see the idea of shaping tomorrow's leaders in higher education is not unique. However, William Dershowitz, a professor at Yale, wrote a scathing article around how most universities, when they say, build tomorrow's leaders, what they really mean is build future donors. And so that most universities want people to graduate, be in positions in, high-tech firms, and they want them to be CEOs or COOs, basically so they have money that give back to the university. And Chancellor DeStefano was very explicit that that's not what he means. He wants to help these young people make a difference in this world and put the public back in public education and graduate understanding the values that our democracy was based on, and then contribute to that democracy in a meaningful way. And so he started this thing called the Center for Leadership. It's about 1.5 years old. The chancellor is the head of the Center for Leadership. I have the great fortune of serving as its executive director. And our vision really is, I like to say we're here to change the world, and I'm dead serious about it. We hope to help these young people have a transformational experience as they transition from adolescence into adulthood during their 4 or 5 years at CU Boulder. Understand what leadership really is, not position, title, power, but values, ethics, civic responsibility, service to others, and acting with integrity. And we do that through 30 affiliated programs in every school and college. We work closely with athletics, student affairs. We have a variety of ways in which we impact our students, both in the classroom, out of the classroom. We bring guest speakers in. We have a mentorship program. And maybe that's how I'll finish, and I'll open up for questions. But as it affects the Rotary, two offerings I want to make you aware of. One is, I can put a link in there. We are hosting General Stan McChrystal as a guest speaker on, it's short notice, but it's this coming Monday, the 28th at 7:30 p.m. in Mackey Auditorium. There's a few tickets left. If anybody would like to attend, I put the link in chat, or I can share it with you over email, but we'd love to have you. But the other point that I want to bring up to this audience is we have a mentorship program where we pair our students with accomplished leaders in the community. And it's either semester long or academic year long program. So the next iteration wouldn't start until August of 22, but it would allow you to make a one-on-one connection with a student. We ask you to meet periodically over the course of a couple months. And then it's very tailored, what you talk about really based on the student, but we've had great feedback, both from mentors and mentees. They love it. It's an adult in their life without an agenda. It's been deeply impactful. And I think it also gives you faith in humanity, and certainly in the future, because it's easy to kind of look cynically, I think, at University of Colorado Boulder, and oftentimes it's the partiers that kind of make the news, but there's a lot of young people that are really, really impressive and a pleasure to work with. And so if anybody's interested in that, I can provide more information. The program's called BCLP, the Boulder CU Leadership Program, but I wanted to extend that offer to everybody on the call today. And we're about out of time, so let me pause to see if there any time for questions or.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's start first online real quick, just to see if anyone has any questions online this time. We always let you go last, so this time we'll let you go first. George.
Yeah, I'd like to know the Center for Leadership. I'm not really familiar with that. And you mentioned ROTC, but I take it you're no longer involved with the ROTC department. So just exactly how does that relate to the University of Colorado? Is it part of the University of Colorado, or a separate entity affiliated with the University of Colorado?
Yes, sir. Great question. And yes, I did retire from active duty, so I'm no longer directly affiliated with the RTC programs, although I'm still an advisor, on their board. The center is affiliated with the university. So there's actually 75 centers at CU Boulder. I think we're the 76th. So we're the newest one. So we are established under our Research and Innovation Office, but we're very, very unique because most centers just focus on research within a specific department. We're the only center that is led by the chancellor. We're the only center that hits every school and college, undergraduate and graduate, and student affairs and athletics. And so the Center for Leadership, we really serve 35,000 students. And then the ROTCs, though, are one of the, or three of the 30 affiliates, because there's 3 ROTCs. But, I think more and more people are seeing the importance for this impact. So for instance, you might get a job because you have a degree, but you're not getting promoted unless you can work together, think critically, be a good teammate, communicate effectively. And these are the skills that we're talking about in terms of leadership. So I think that's more well-known or more appreciated in the recent, few years. And so more and more people see the need for this. I don't know if I answered your question, sir.
Okay. Yeah, you did. And I just have another curious question about leadership. You guys, have you done studies regarding personality profiles and leadership? Sometimes I get the feeling that different groups think, well, I can teach somebody to be a leader, but actually some personality profiles are more conducive to leadership than others. And I just wondered, have you guys done any studies regarding, for example, Myers-Briggs profiles and so forth to determine the relationship with leadership on that?
Yes, sir. No, there's extensive studies out there, and that is one of the nodes of the center. We do have a research component led by a tenured professor that supports interdisciplinary research. So to your point, I would agree with you to a point. And we've looked at, we use Myers-Briggs, we use Enneagram Strengths Finder, Hartman personality profile, Ray Dalio, if you know Ray, he's got a new personality profile. What I personally believe though is yes, certain personality profiles maybe lend itself a little bit easier to be a leader, but the biggest part is that you are self-aware enough so you know yourself and you know how you present to others. And if you have shortcomings, you can make up for it in other ways. So for instance, I am debilitatingly introverted, but I know that. And then I can surround myself with people that kind of help me with those gaps, and that self-awareness is more important than the actual personality profile itself. But we do talk a lot about self-awareness. I think it's one of the huge roadblocks to being effective leadership is this lack of self-awareness.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that answer.
So we have a hand up right now from Suzanne Ginger, then Dave Turner after that.
Hey, thank you for presenting. My question centers on the second half of life. If you're concentrating on the youth going through college, what suggestions do you have for people who are now approaching retirement age and who have been in the business sector to encourage them to become leaders if they haven't become leaders, to step up to the plate, maybe outside their jobs and take on leadership roles? How would they know whether they're good for that? Thanks.
Suzanne, that's a great question. I love it. And so I should offer the chancellor wants to also use leadership as a bridge to improve town and gown relationships and better connect with the community. So we actually do have offerings for community members regardless of age. So for instance, we're running an executive leadership program, but it's for community members or community leaders, and it'll be in May after graduation. I think it's 9 to 13 May. So that we do have offerings beyond just our students. But to your question, if anybody's familiar with the work of Carolyn Dweck, she's credited with the idea of growth mindset, which essentially is the notion that leaders require this kind of insatiable desire to continue to learn and grow, and that's a critical factor in being effective leaders. And so, I don't think that leadership has ever anybody that ever said, "Hey, I got this leadership thing figured out, I'm good." I worry deeply about that person, and so. I prefer the idea that we're all students of leadership, and our pursuit of self-growth is never ending. I also believe that, being a better leader is being a better person. And so there's always something to improve on. Like I said, we offer some of those offerings. I actually think when you mentor somebody, there's a lot of the mentor learns a lot too, because there's introspection, there's thinking. Sometimes the mentor mentees will share articles and reflect on kind of what they've learned over their life and share that. And so I think a lot of it is just the mindset of the older individuals. As long as they don't feel like they are fixed and they're open to learning and growing, then there's infinite opportunities to pursue that growth. I don't know if that makes sense or if I answered your question, but
Yes, thank you very much.
Dave,
So
do you have
Aaron,
another?
yeah, Aaron, what you said there was kind of touched a little bit on my point, or a question I had is about mentoring. Generally, leadership is a continual struggle as you learn to be better. And so do you have, as part of this program, a mentoring component to it that actually extends beyond graduation, so that these people who are in your program now have people they can contact 5-10 years from now when they face their new leadership challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave. Structurally, no, partly because I don't know that we can do that, although I'll say informally, these relationships do continue. So for instance, the chair of my board is a guy named Alan Rogers, who some of you may know. Alan is very active in Downtown Boulder Partnership in Downtown Boulder. He helped me kind of conceive of this mentoring program. He served himself as a mentor, and his first student has graduated. They still stay in touch quite frequently. And, in a good mentoring relationship, it's almost like a personal relationship, like it's got to fit organically. And most of those, I believe, will continue, although we are so new that it's, we don't have sufficient data to say that, but that's certainly the hope, that we're building these lifelong relationships.
Before you go, Kim, I have a question in the room here. So Bob Crothers,
Okay.
would you like to ask your question real quick?
Given what I perceive to be your political position, do you think that the students majority that you attract are of similar political position? Or do you get any of the alleged liberals which run CU?
Aaron, you can also recuse yourself from answering questions you don't want to have on video. This is recorded and will be on the internet. So just giving you an out there. You can take it out.
I'll answer anything. I got nothing to hide. You know, the lessons we teach are absolutely nonpartisan. I don't think either side has a, you know, controls the idea of living one's values and trying to be a better human and acting ethically. And so to answer the question, no, actually, I would say most of the students I teach probably do not share the same political ideology that I do. However, does not stop deep and strong shared relationships. You know, I think that's one of the things we're really focused on is the increased polarization in our country has been damaging, I think, for all involved. And so for instance, we brought in Cornell West and Robbie George last year. That was a Center for Leadership sponsored event that you may have attended. And if you don't know, Robbie George is a Catholic conservative out of Princeton. Cornell West, a radical liberal who used to teach for Harvard and he's since retired. But they're also very good friends. And they have a speaking tour around kind of having discourse or finding ways to have respectful dialogue, even though you might have polar opposite political views. So we believe that's another place where we can bring value to the community to host these respectful dialogues between people that maybe don't agree, but that doesn't mean we have to, villainize one another. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Perfect, Aaron, beautiful. Bob gave you a wink, so that's a good sign. Leslie, did you have a question here?
Yeah, I have a question. So Aaron, I'm very lucky that my daughter chose CU to go to school. She really wanted to go anywhere but, get out of Colorado and the Boulder bubble where everything is too beautiful, too happy, too rich, too white, too everything. But she is a freshman at CU, and I'm lucky to, to be able to see her frequently. But we had a conversation this weekend, kind of related to her experience on campus. She's very engaged. She has a great group of friends, but it was all about fitting in versus belonging. And I think that's really, I thought that really sparked an important point that, especially that age and just entering college and trying to, establish friendships. And I've been reading several books by Brene Brown, and it was in her book, Braving the Wilderness, that she, focused on fitting in versus belonging. So I shared that with Lydia, and I'm hoping to get some more feedback on her, from her. But how do you touch that in a broader scope on campus with these kids, fitting in versus belonging?
It's a great question, not an easy solution. I will say fitting in is very, I believe, surface level. Belonging is much deeper. One of the best ways we can facilitate that, and one of the cornerstones of the Center for Leadership, is providing additional opportunities for experiential education. And so this is a little bit maybe broader than the question you asked, but we get asked often, how do you build leaders? Can you teach leadership? And I believe the answer is unequivocally yes. We take a learn, observe, do model. So learn is in the classroom, observe is the mentorship and bringing in accomplished guest speakers. But one of the areas where I think we are weakest at CU Boulder and where the center is investing a number of resources is the idea of experiential education. So that's getting people out of the classroom, getting people comfortable with discomfort. And it goes to your question, because one of the best ways to belong is through shared adversity. And so, I often say adversity reveals true character, and shared adversity builds strong bonds. And so for most of you, I guess some of your closest friends are people that you went through some hardship with. And when you come out the other side, you see people for who they really are. You have greater confidence in yourself, and you build these lifelong bonds. And I mean, I can speak personally that some of my closest friends are the people that I went through the hardest times with, and that's no coincidence. And I am a little bit concerned at the CU Boulder student population maybe prioritizes comfort as a value, and they do so at their own detriment. And so how can we present opportunities, break down barriers, encourage students, and incentivize them to have these uncomfortable situations that we know are impactful? You know, it's one of those things that maybe they don't like it while they're doing it, but when they're finished, they're so glad that they did it. And then when you do that collectively, you know, that shared suffering builds those relationships that carry a deep sense of belonging. And so anyway, that's one of the things we are absolutely dedicated to, that I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And in fact, I'm hiring right now. I just got a $1 million gift, and that gift is 100% dedicated towards hiring a person to increase these opportunities in a budget to ensure that you know, money doesn't prevent students from taking part of that. So I don't know that that's the be all end all, but that's how we're approaching it, you know, from what we can do at the Center for Leadership.
Hey, Kim, I have your question next.
Okay, thank you. Wait a minute, do I have it? Yes. Erin, I do a lot with the Lafayette VFW auxiliary. We send packages, a huge number of packages on a regular basis overseas. I am most concerned about the, so many of our troops are coming back with PTSD and they just can't get it together. Is there anything that you're doing to address that at CU? Because we owe it to our troops. I mean, I just see a lot of them almost unable to function. And it's heartbreaking. It really, really is. So wondering.
Yeah, so, I'll share through the Center for Leadership. No, we are not working on that problem. Me personally, because I can relate to that. And I'll also tell you, the Veterans Affairs is the worst organization ever created.
Terrible.
It is the bane of my existence, terrible to deal with. Yeah. I don't have a solution to that. I've struggled with it for years, and I wish you luck. But so personally, I feel for you. I agree with you. It's been absolutely terrible and wretched. But the Center for Leadership right now is not working with it, other than we have a good relationship, obviously, with the Veteran Affairs. If you know Stu Elliott, who runs our Veterans Affairs at CU, he's a wonderful leader and has done great work in that program. And they're an affiliated program of ours, but we are not directly involved with that fight. Sorry.
Thank you, Erin. In the room here, we have a question from Mary Beth.
Hi, Erin. How large is your staff? You said you got $1 million grant to hire more staff. I went to a training in the fall with, I think, somebody from your staff. She was a female athlete. It was a mentorship program from the Conference on World Affairs and how to be a mentor. Of course, I worked in theater, so nobody wants me to be a mentor. No, theater is, you know, people think they can do it themselves. And I really believe that you need guidance. So how large is your staff?
We're small but mighty. It's myself, and you met probably Emily, I think, gave that class. So Emily and I are the only paid staff members currently. We're hiring a full-time staff member, but then we have an executive committee, which is made up of right now 11, but they volunteer, but they're faculty and staff as representatives from our 30 programs. And then we have a very, very impressive board of advisors. We have 19 board members who are some heavy hitters, and we kind of read them the riot act and say, hey, this is a working board. This isn't a board that you just show up, you know, feel good about it, like we're going to put you to work. And so I can share that link is on, but we have some just amazing board members that are supporting our work as well. So small in terms of paid staff, but we have a lot of volunteers that are very committed, because I believe they see the noble mission of the center.
11 members for 35,000 students is not a lot.
No, and actually, yeah, we work closely. Well, I just met with the Center for Character and Leader Development down at the Air Force Academy. They have a $50 million budget and 30 full-time employees for 4,000 students, and they were they were saying how understaffed they are and they don't have enough resources, and I had to chuckle. But it's a little bit different environment. But yes, we are understaffed, and that is a priority for the chancellor. I think you're going to see more resources coming in the next fiscal year. Yeah.
Hey, Terry, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah, I'm, you can't see me because I'm in the corner. Hi. And I know I'm supposed to look at the camera, but we prefer a face. So I'm a Lutheran pastor, and our, in the ELCA, and our bishops, someone in our bishop's office created a leadership program that I find is excellent. In fact, it's called Leadership and Excellence. But she adapted it. She took a sabbatical and was reading books on adaptive leadership and emotional intelligence. Do you incorporate that into your program?
Yes, ma'am, we do. So
It's
yeah,
totally different than a business model or a military model. It's totally accurate.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think everybody's talking about emotional intelligence. Some people, I use Dan Goleman's model, who is people do it differently. I will share that this is one of the beauties, I think, of CU Boulder. Whereas the Air Force Academy has one way to teach leadership. Here at CU Boulder, the ROTCs obviously have their way to teach leadership. The business school is very database, very driven on case study methodology. The engineering leadership program, interestingly enough, goes back to Plutarch. And they read Machiavelli, and they do kind of a completely different version of leadership education. The School of Education is looking at leadership through social justice issues, and so I think that's one of the things that makes CU Boulder very, very special, is that there's something for everybody. So as the students come in, I really believe we have program offerings for every interest for any kind of student, and we don't prioritize that one style of teaching leadership is better than the other. We think that kind of needs to be somewhat individualized.
Marty, I have you next.
Yes, and maybe you talked about this a little bit, Aaron, and I missed it, but I'm still a little confused about getting the students you work with and how that works. If you could clarify a few things. Do you work directly with each department in the university? And do you have people go into classes, or can students sign up for classes just with you? How, if students seem to want to be a part of this, do they sign up for a workshop to talk to somebody? I'm just confused about the pattern to get the students involved.
Yes, ma'am. No, it's a good question, and it's very, very complicated. So like I said, well, right now we have about 30 programs. And so much of our course offerings are through the programs that already exist in the schools, colleges, and student affairs. Our programs include everything from, the ROTCs are probably the most high intensive time led. I also run the President's Leadership class, which is a co-curricular multidisciplinary 4-year leadership program where students apply coming in from high school. That's kind of one extreme. You also have just classes you can take. And we have academic credentialed programs such as a leadership certificate in both engineering leads and a leadership studies minor that we run that is open to all undergraduate students, regardless of school, college, or major. But we also have one-day events run through, we call it GOLD, which is an acronym for Gaining Opportunities Through Leader Development. And it's like a one-day workshop thing. We also offer, for instance, like one-day experiential wilderness leadership retreats open to all students. So there's a huge menu of ways to get involved. What's really exciting is we're about to offer core curriculum, which has been about a 10-year process at CU Boulder, which says that every CU Boulder student has to have these learning outcomes at some point in their 4-year career. And so it's not official yet, but it will be, where leadership will be one of those outcomes. So that means every one of the incoming freshmen, 6,000 or 7,000 students will be exposed to what leadership is or isn't, and then have the opportunity to further pursue whether they really want to be a leader. I should mention, I don't think everybody wants to be a leader. Yeah,
Thank you, Aaron. That's really helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
One quick thing, I just wanted to point out that you talked about the mentorship program, and Marty, who just asked her question, she is one of our co-leads for our vocational committee. And we have a mentorship program that started up with CU through the Rotary Club at CU. So there might be some opportunities there for further conversation. So I'll make sure to get you all connected after the meeting. And I did see that Bill had talked about trying to expose more young people to Rotary. And so if there is an opportunity where you're looking for us to speak about that, Marty, who is our past president, she might be another good opportunity to kind of bridge that gap in both ways, both for mentorship opportunities within our club members, as well as just kind of giving some information about Rotary as a leadership organization in communities around the world. I did see we have another question here in the room. Leslie raised her hand. So
Yeah, just real quick, Aaron, we had a really wonderful member here at Boulder Flatirons Rotary who had a lot in common with you at CU, Mike Goff. He taught ROTC, so we were really sad when he retired from CU and he moved out of the state. So, but he was a great member here at Boulder Flatirons. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. Yeah,
we'll get you in sometime for sure to visit, even if you're not presenting. Okay, Aaron.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, guys.
I'd like that. Thank you.
Any other questions online? I see a few people who didn't have a question, so just giving them an opportunity. No, in the room, any more? Bob Crothers has got another question, I can tell it. Oh yeah, he does. Look at those eyes. No, all right, he's gonna refrain. He might email you though. Well, Aaron, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. And we know that you'll have to come back because we've got a gift for you, which it may not seem like a lot on camera, but I'll put it up close. It's the whole world. And it's got the Rotary emblem on it. It's a paperweight, so you can remember speaking for us here. So we'll hold this for you. I've got it here in our go bag. But yeah, definitely it was a pleasure to have you. And we learned a lot about, I'm sure, an organization within CU that despite living here, most of us had probably very little information on. So that's very helpful. And it sounds like a great network opportunity for us to be able to help you in any way that with mentorship, and also probably provide some information and opportunities. There's within the Rotary Club at CU, just as a side note for leadership opportunities for you, Rotary clubs are treated equal to full Rotary clubs. So they have the ability to do things such as host large international global grants, go to international trainings, and participate in a lot of our activities. So it's a really cool, neat way to, you find the right person in your organization that needs some outlet for some leadership that they're trying to do, and that might be one way to do it that will get them where they want to go. And then other than that, many of the people here either work for CU, at CU, or CU tangential. So there might be some opportunities there, and I'm sure you'll get a couple emails tonight, okay? That being said, I know we're 2-3 minutes early, but we've got all that snow outside to contend with. So thank you again, Aaron. We're gonna sign off on our end. Everyone's around the applause.
Thank you.
As always, it's Wednesday. It's Rotary.
It's Rotary.
Also, Ann, I think you might have some stuff in the car, right? For a couple people. Is that what you were saying earlier today? No, not today.
Not today.
All right. Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Sorry about